I'm going through a divorce. My son's new wife, who just got married a few days ago, unexpectedly said these words to me. I was so surprised that I couldn't even respond. Just a few days ago, my son had an emotional wedding. They should be on their honeymoon right now. Instead, she's here alone, dropping this bombshell. I couldn't fathom what went wrong during their trip. Tears streamed down her face, and all I could do was watch as she fell apart in front of me. My name's Elizabeth, in my 50s, a homemaker who raised two sons. When they were young, I found out about my husband's affair, and we got divorced. Since then, I've been working tirelessly to raise my boys by myself. They're very different. My elder son, James, is bright, excelling in school, and later securing a scholarship to a prestigious university. He now has a good job at a major corporation and recently married a woman from his workplace. They seem happy together. But my younger son, Ethan, was more of a handful. In middle school, he fell in with a rough crowd, causing trouble and even starting a fire at school. I worked hard to get him through high school, where his rebellious streak continued. He graduated, but finding stability was a challenge. He bounced between jobs, never staying long. And he had a string of girlfriends, bringing them home often. I worried about him causing trouble or hurting others. It's been 5 years since high school, and I still wonder what will become of him. One day, Ethan came home for the first time in a while, saying he had something important to discuss. He announced that he was going to start taking work seriously. This wasn't the first time I'd heard such promises. I've landed a job at a company, and they're offering me a full-time position, he said, seemingly aware that I might doubt him. Ethan went on to talk about the company he'd been accepted into, trying to convince me that he was serious this time. Really? That's fantastic news, I responded, though I couldn't help but be surprised. Given the tough economic times, it seemed unlikely that a company would hire Ethan, who had only been doing part-time work. He explained that his current girlfriend, Michelle, had introduced him to the job. According to Ethan, Michelle's father owned the company, and she had helped him secure the position. While I should have been happy that my son had found stable employment, part of me couldn't shake off my skepticism. Ethan had a reputation as a ladies' man, and I couldn't help but wonder if he had manipulated Michelle to get the job. Ethan had a history of relying too much on women, and I'd warned him about it before. I hoped he wouldn't become a burden to Michelle. Despite my concerns, Ethan seemed to be genuinely committed to his work for the time being. In the past, he never stayed in a job for more than a few months. But Ethan surprised us all by sticking with the job for half a year, then a whole year. This might seem normal for most people, but for Ethan, who had a habit of jumping from one job to another, it was quite unexpected. Then, after 3 years of working there, Ethan and his girlfriend, Michelle, came to visit us with some big news. "Mom, we're getting married," Ethan casually announced. I had suspected this might be coming, seeing them together, but hearing about my mischievous son's marriage was still a surprise. "So, you two have decided on this?" I asked. Seeing them standing there with serious expressions, I didn't feel like opposing their decision. "I understand. It's the path you both chose. So move forward together," I said, accepting their marriage, albeit in a bit of a roundabout way. Then Michelle's eyes welled up with tears, and she began to speak. "Thank you so much. We'll work together to build a wonderful family," she said, looking at me intently as she made her vow with a trembling voice. I had been thinking for a while that she's a woman with a pure heart, too good for Ethan. "Michelle, take good care of my son," I said, expressing my gratitude for her support. The reason I was hearing this happy news today was because she had supported him all this time. I responded with a smile, moved to tears as big drops fell from her eyes. Seeing her wipe her eyes gently with a handkerchief, I felt like crying myself. I knew she had been taking care of Ethan, who still had a mischievous side to him. From the bottom of my heart, I thought Ethan was really lucky. "Ethan, make sure to make Michelle happy. From now on, you have to cherish her more than anything," I said, and Ethan nodded shyly. And so Ethan and Michelle were officially engaged. The wedding was simple yet solemn, with only family and close friends present. As I recalled various memories, I sincerely wished for them to support each other as lifelong partners. I truly hoped that Ethan could make Michelle, a selfless and devoted woman, happy. Shortly after their wedding, Ethan and Michelle decided to have their honeymoon within the country due to their savings, a sensible choice in my opinion. I expected Michelle to take charge of their marriage and keep Ethan, who used to be a playboy, in line. But my hopes turned to despair when 3 days into their honeymoon, Michelle unexpectedly showed up at my door. "Michelle, what happened? Weren't you on your honeymoon?" I asked, surprised to see her there, with Ethan nowhere to be found. With a drained expression, Michelle confessed, "Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. I have to divorce him." I was shocked. They had just gotten married, and now the bride was talking about divorce. "What happened? Did something occur with Ethan?" I asked, feeling hesitant. Michelle, after a moment of silence, softly revealed he was having an affair. I was speechless. This shouldn't be happening. Ethan, who had just vowed eternal love at their wedding, was cheating and secretly seeing his ex-girlfriend. During their honeymoon, of all times, Michelle started to cry as she recounted the painful discovery. I was at a loss for words. Introducing a mistress to your wife during your honeymoon, it was unthinkable. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could my son do such a terrible thing? Tears streamed down Michelle's cheeks, but they held a spark of hatred, contrasting sharply with the blissful sparkle she had just days ago. She had been betrayed by the one she loved. Michelle recounted the shocking events. Ethan's ex-girlfriend was staying at the same place they had chosen for their honeymoon. Ethan had called her there, inviting her to the hotel where they were staying. It was unthinkable. What was Ethan thinking? "It must have been hard for you, Michelle. I'm truly sorry for what my son has done." I apologized, unable to understand Ethan's actions. As I hugged Michelle's trembling shoulders, I listened to her thoughts, feeling a wave of anger rising inside me. Unable to bear the pain unfolding before my eyes, I left the scene. When his mistress met Michelle, she must have flaunted their shameful relationship, causing Michelle even more distress. She seemed more confused and saddened than angry. Contrasting with Michelle's demeanor, my anger towards Ethan grew. How could he cause such distress to a woman who had always been his rock? I dialed Ethan's number in a fit of anger. "Ethan, where are you right now?" I asked, trying to remain calm. He answered carefreely, oblivious to the turmoil. "I'm on my honeymoon, enjoying it with Michelle. Did you call just to interrupt us?" Ethan replied, playing dumb. I was astounded. Did he not understand the gravity of the situation? Rallying myself, I raised my voice. "Stop lying. Michelle is here with me." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, followed by Ethan's small surprise. "Come back home right now," I instructed him firmly, demanding his immediate return. I suspected Ethan was trying to figure out how to handle the situation, even daring to lie at this point. My mind was made up. While on the phone with Ethan, I offered Michelle comforting words, unable to believe my own son could be so foolish. Even after telling her about the call, Michelle expressed that she didn't want to see Ethan right now, and understandably so. So I decided to handle Ethan myself for the time being. I called Michelle's parents to inform them of what happened, then drove Michelle back to her parents' house, where they were understandably furious. All I could do was apologize profusely on behalf of my foolish son. Exhausted upon returning home, I waited for Ethan to come back. When he arrived that night, he seemed troubled, wearing a poor smile. He probably still didn't understand the gravity of what he had done. Each time I looked at his face, my anger grew. "Ethan, you've really messed up this time," I said sternly. His response was a look of annoyance, followed by a foolish grin. "My ex-girlfriend said she's close by and wanted to see me," he explained, as if that might justify his actions, or even worse, as if he had given Michelle the wrong idea. But I wasn't buying it. "Are you still seeing her? Did you really call her in the middle of your honeymoon?" I asked, my words piercing through his excuses. Ethan, visibly embarrassed, admitted, "Well, we were only seeing each other occasionally." It was clear to me that even after breaking up with his ex and starting to date Michelle, Ethan had continued a physical relationship with his ex, a friend with benefits, as he put it. When I confronted him about it, Ethan shrugged it off, as if it were no big deal. Furthermore, when Ethan told his ex-girlfriend about marrying Michelle, she suggested the location of their honeymoon where she lived. Despite Michelle's reservations, Ethan took her advice, and as soon as they arrived, the woman insisted on meeting them. Whether she wanted to show off her connection with Ethan or flaunt her desirability, her actions upset Michelle. After hearing the whole story, I finally spoke to Ethan. "I'm cutting our ties. You clean up your own mess. I'm not getting involved." It was a decision I had made when he lied to me. I had done more than enough to clean up after him, but he was a grown man now, and I had neither the inclination nor the patience to cover for him anymore. Ethan pleaded with me not to cut ties, but I stood firm. For a son who disregards his devoted wife and betrays people, the least I can do is this. You've betrayed someone you should have cherished. I told you countless times to make Michelle happy. I believed you had finally outgrown your bad habits, but I was mistaken. This is the only option left for me. He suddenly started crying and clinging to me, but I remained resolute. Things with Michelle probably won't just end with a divorce. You might lose your job too. Live alone for the rest of your life so no one else gets hurt. That's the only way you can atone. Soon after, Michelle blindsided Ethan with a divorce request. Evidence of their adulterous meetings from both their phones surfaced, and Ethan, faced with alimony demands, had no choice but to agree to the divorce. He was then laid off from the company owned by Michelle's father, likely in retaliation. Refusing to have anything to do with him, I pushed him away. But considering his character, he might ignore the alimony payments if left alone. So, as my duty as a parent, I introduced him to a job at a company run by an old friend, where the work is grueling. I made him promise to deduct the alimony payment from his salary. Despite feeling down about the incident, my other son James supported me. He gave me wonderful news. His wife was pregnant with twins. Eventually, they safely gave birth, and I joyfully became a grandmother. They decided to move next to me, giving me the gift of a peaceful life after the turmoil caused by Ethan. Now, I spend my days peacefully with my sweet grandchildren, grateful for the support of my eldest son and the joy they bring into my life.